All right, everyone. Welcome to Open Waters Podcast. It is episode 11. I'm here with Collin and Mark. It's been a little bit since I've been on the podcast. I missed the last two. So, Collin, you were on the last one. Mark, you were on a few ago. So you are making your way back to the podcast as well. It's tough. We were talking about this before. Full working schedule, especially with the Suez Canal situation. Because I'm in the, obviously the freight forwarding world. So that had a big impact on my day today. So been a little busy at work, but we will get into the Suez Canal situation. How's everyone else been up to? What's everyone doing?
Everything's been great. Mark is starting to become a professional at this. He's been on quite a bit, and also he's been tearing up the Clubhouse scene.
The Clubhouse scene.
But yeah, for me, on the marine sourcing side, it hasn't been too crazy like you are, since you're so customer facing with the Suez Canal incident. I'm mainly just still worrying about the terminals and getting those contracts done, depending on the season. And then that's pretty much it. What about you, Mark?
Suez Canal's been big talk on Clubhouse, and I've had a lot of people, like friends from high school or whatever, not from Maritime, text me about it and ask. Like general consensus, especially in rooms on Clubhouse, is that, although there's it's a pain in the butt for a lot, it's also kind of good. I mean, it's, no complaints about getting, more eyes on the industry. So front page news for a week. It's been on top part of the Wall Street Journal app every day since it happened.
Yeah.
So no complaints on that end.
Yeah. So let's just get into it. And that's interesting. You mentioned it about your friends from home that like are non-maritime friends, people not in the industry. It is interesting the way that they're reaching out about this story in particular. I think this is probably the biggest story for our industry, for better or worse, in a while. I can't really think of the last one, at least since I've been, a professional. I don't really think of one.
The engine, I thought. I think that wasn't nearly as big, but when I got some international news, just because people, obviously crew members were stuck on board, but that wasn't nearly the same as this. Like, they weren't making memes out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't have every single. Yeah, I was going to say you don't have every single major Instagram posting about it. Like, I think it's kind of crazy. Just seeing it show up in my timeline, the Evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd ever see like people catch on board with something like that, especially in our industry. So it's been pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think some of my friends they might have been like talking to each other, because I had one reach out to me. We're in like a big group chat. One reach out to me about it. I gave him the absolute like rundown. I gave him everything. Like, he asked for a little, I gave him a lot, and then he might have told everyone else like, yo, don't text Connor about this, because he's just gonna go off on it. So yeah, I really was. It's fun for me, because this is like I kind of nerd out about this stuff. So when everyone else is talking about it, it's just cool to be a part of it. So so let's kind of talk about the Suez Canal situation. I think a lot of people are familiar with it, obviously, because, like Mark said, Wall Street Journal for the past few days. But I just kind of want to talk about, like what happened, and then maybe some of the repercussions of what's going to happen. So as we know, it was late last week, rolling into the weekend, we got word that the Evergreen, which some people online were like, is it called the Evergreen or the Evergreen? I kept seeing that a lot. So it's the Evergreen, Evergreen. A lot of their vessels are actually named Ever or something. So Evergreen was actually lodged in the canal. It was touching Africa and it was touching Asia on both ends of the ship. So I always thought that was pretty interesting. So it was lodged in between, and it was grounded on both the stern and the bow. And eventually they were able to, after a few days and a lot of money, it pretty much just, stopped at the canal. They were able to free the stern as of Sunday night on Eastern time, which was Monday morning in Egypt. So Sunday night they were able to free the stern, and be able to swing around the stern so that it could actually stay on the side. And at that point, you could pass through the canal. They didn't open the canal until later on Monday around like 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern. But so they were able to free it up, and now the Ever Given is in the Bitter Lakes waiting for an inspection. But the canal is fully open and fully operational. So it's the canal right now. It's a 12-hour transit from entrance to exit. There's 50 ship capacity, so they can push more, I think. And there probably are. I don't have like the up-to-date statistics on it, but from what I was reading online, a little bit of background on the canal is that it could push about 50 ships at once. So pretty cool. What kind of insight or what would you guys learn about this incident that you thought was pretty cool?
I think how it's going to change some things for these ultra large vessels. I know
20,000 TEU.
Yeah, and I know my company, we had the CMA CGM Champ Ulysses. I don't know how to pronounce it. You might have to help me out with that. But it's 23,500 TEU, and that was waiting right behind the Ever Given, I believe, or it may have turned around once it got stuck. But so it kind of puts things in perspective. What's going to happen with these larger vessels? Are they going to come down on them and double the amount of pilots that have to be on board? Because all those things you take into account, they add up to a lot of money. Maybe they need to be escorted. I'm not really too familiar with the Suez Canal, but something may change in the future, so something like this doesn't happen.
I
That's
saw
my take
online that, and some of you know Melvin from Clubhouse, that he's in a lot of groups with, and we had a meeting about it. We had a house room open about it this week, and it's a lot of what we talked about. We're trying to figure out why it happened, but talking about implications and that sort of thing. And he brought up a good point, which is that before this, the Panama Canal outnumbered Suez in accidents every year. So I don't think the concern is safety. I don't think they're going to put investments. This is the group now that I'm talking about. What we thought of as a group. It's one of the easier canals to dredge because it's sand, and what will likely happen is that it's a cost analysis between something like dredging and widening or deepening it versus adding additional measures, like you said, extra pilots, right, or sort of the whatever you want to call it, additional support structure versus literally just widening it or adding depth to it.
Yeah.
One of those two will happen. Probably not both.
Yeah, and the dredging thing. So that is one of the videos that we shared on our Instagram was the guys on the dredger. So the dredger was the little engine that could, I guess it was just dredging for hours at a time, which is not abnormal for a dredging crew to do. But they were trying to free that bow, and then the videos afterwards were just awesome. The guys getting they were going nuts, and every single, I swear, I was on Twitter and I typed in Evergreen and I was just scrolling at the latest, and every single tug, one of their crew members was posting a video on Twitter. You had different angles of everyone celebrating, which I thought was so cool. But another thing I wanted to bring up was which was a big news, was the diversions around the Cape of Good Hope, right? So that's interesting because no one, some vessels are actually going around, but I did get noticed that quite a few were maybe we're not going to go after, right as soon as they start hearing that the canal might be open again, we start to get word that they're not going to divert around. So some of them were already too far gone. They're still going around the Cape, but most of them, especially the ones that weren't even near the canal, I don't believe that they're going to be taking that long trip around. It's quite the long trip.
So what do you think they're going to, how every Evergreen vessel is ever something? Mm-hmm. Do you think there'll be a new vessel name after this?
I don't
Like
know.
Exxon Valdez getting rid of Exxon in front of the names after.
No, like Everstuck,
Ever.
Everblock. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's what Evergreen should do. They should just buy into it. Like
Yeah, they should go along with
the
it.
memes, I think, were the biggest takeaway here, and I think that's why this really took off was because people were going nuts over this ship, and people were interested. I'm pretty like I'm more active on Twitter now than I am on Clubhouse because I was active on Clubhouse, but now I just like scrolling. So one of the things was everyone in pretty much every industry was talking about it, like from the financial Twitter to shipping Twitter, which is super small, to like tech startups. Yeah, so it was just pretty interesting. And not glad to be a part of it because my week was stressful. You know, as I mentioned before, I my day-to-day job is I'm shipping out of the India subcontinent. So for everyone that's familiar with geography, India subcontinent is right. You know, if you want to go to the U.S. East Coast, you're going through the Suez Canal. So, yeah, pretty much all the shipments that I work on day to day, you know, may face some delays depending on what vessels were waiting and what weren't. So that's still to be determined. But yeah, so that's the Suez Canal. Does anyone else have anything else or anything to add other than that?
Not at the
Yeah,
moment,
just
but
on Clubhouse. Oh, sorry.
well, I was just gonna say, like, what kind of opportunities came out of this? You know how every crisis, there's some sort of opportunity on the other side, depending on the way you look at it. Maybe some ship owner there was positioned perfectly somewhere else around the world, where they could take advantage of all the ships that are blocked
Well,
in the canal.
charter rates, right? They went up. I wish
Right.
Brendan was on here to kind of talk about that a little bit, but like we talk about The Shipping Man, right? That book, because we were talking about it in our group chat,
Exactly.
and it really is like if you read the first book, it's like seizing these opportunities, and you know, market's super down, rates are down, and then something like this happens, and it's just
Exactly.
who can seize that moment, and that's how you make the big bucks. So
Right.
it is interesting to live through a moment like that.
Yeah.
So moving on, let's kind of talk about Clubhouse a little bit, Mark. Like what have you been up to on Clubhouse? We were all super active. I say Clubhouse is dead. You say it's not. This is I think it's a kind of a hot topic. Just because Twitter launched, you know, their similar platform, which is not a platform at all. It's just an addition to Twitter. So I see a lot of people using that. I do get notifications a lot from Clubhouse still, and I'll pop in if I see something that I'm super interested in, but I'm no longer like on it all the time, which maybe that was like the honeymoon phase, but yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. I mean, I've seen it where I think everyone, you know, it's interesting on Clubhouse, the way, I don't know, you know, how they engineered it, but, you know, you're in the same circles with people, even like across different, you know, like obviously I'm in the maritime circles of things, but I see the same people joining those as, you know, who I found in completely different random clubs, you know. It's interesting how people bounce around, you know, because so much based on who you follow, right? So when everything's up, you know, when I see other people are active, I'm active too. I'll be on 18 hours a day, right? So that's how I was a couple weeks ago. I was on all day. So it feels like a
Wow,
weight.
we gotta take
You
a
know what I
second
mean?
there.
Like,
The fact that you just said 18 hours a day, like I
I'm
don't even,
impossible.
literally
yeah,
impossible.
I mean, over the course of like 3 or 4 days, I was on for like well over 25 hours.
Well, I hope you made some pretty good connections.
Yeah,
I did, you
you
know,
did.
but what I noticed is that as I was doing that, everyone else was doing that too, or at least everyone that I was connected with, regardless of how I was connected to them, whether it was maritime or not, they were also on a long time. And then, you know, it's almost like that weekend, right? Like starting the next week as everyone chilled out, you know, it was like, because you only want to join things or you only want to join rooms that have people that are in them, right? So if I stopped going on, then, you know, X amount of people, you know, so it felt like that. So I don't think it's dead. I think everyone's just kind of chilling out and it's leveling off, you know,
Yeah,
because people are still active. People are still making events and groups and they're still joining it, especially maritime groups. They
Yeah.
still have events very regularly and a good turnout.
yeah, I should definitely go on there again. Like Connor said, there is definitely a honeymoon phase when you think it's unbelievable. Like you're getting in these clubhouse rooms with CEOs of different startups and people, these business owners that are
People you
new
would
to the
never have a
industry.
conversation
Exactly.
with if it wasn't
Exactly.
for
So like just to be able to get that exposure and having those conversations and discussions with people that have decades more experience than you, it's definitely helpful and useful. But I think being on it for that first week, it was a honeymoon phase. So like you quickly like lost the nostalgia of it, or I don't know. Connor, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And who should really be on it is any student or someone looking to change roles in a different job or something. I really do think that the maritime community on Clubhouse is surprisingly large.
Yeah.
Like very surprisingly large, because even if you're on Twitter or something, if like one of the things that I'm used to now, that I didn't have any exposure to prior to like a couple months ago, was like Twitter, like financial Twitter, and people talking about stocks and stuff. Maybe that kind of aligns with me getting more into that, like investing. But that does not exist for like Twitter, like maritime Twitter. But the same thing does exist on Clubhouse. There's like the financial stuff. You can we see Bruno, who was on the show. He's always like hosting rooms and in rooms about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is sick. Like you can go in it, and I'm not a hater on Clubhouse. I'm just saying that me personally, my habits have definitely toned back a little bit. I think that if you could consume it like a podcast, like you're consuming this episode, yeah, you could probably listen to it a lot more than the way that I was doing it. Was like, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm on Clubhouse and I'm active.
Yeah,
I'm doing.
you're not
Right.
multitasking.
Yeah, if you're able to interact with the different speakers, and that's the good thing about the maritime one. It's not like you're joining these Bitcoin like rooms where there's 700 people in them. You don't get a chance to speak. But if you're in the maritime groups, there's only 15 people. You raise your hand, you're talking to people. But
Yeah.
for right now, the things I find the most interesting on Clubhouse, like those Bitcoin rooms, just because it's entertainment.
Yeah, the Bitcoin Chapel. Shout out to them. I doubt any of them are listening to this podcast, but if they are, that would be awesome, because they have a Sunday service. For anyone who's not familiar with it, they have like a Sunday church service, but instead of praising like the Lord, they're praising Bitcoin, and they're
Same
praising
thing.
Satoshi, which is like the fake, not the fake, but the assumed founder of Bitcoin. So yeah, interesting atmosphere there. It's definitely a subculture. There's tons of subcultures on there.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say this. Like, I feel like I'm gonna find my next job via Clubhouse, because you skip right to the interview.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I stepped off of Clubhouse, or I stopped tuning into it as much, is because I kind of stopped seeing the value in like myself. I think that it has a lot more value if you're an entrepreneur, or if you like need those immediate connections, or like you're saying, like you need like some sort of job. Or at least for the position that I'm in right now, as far as like decision making power in my own like company. I'm not sure if like some of those discussions really has too much of an impact. Whereas if I was like an entrepreneur, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was the first time I experienced. Funny you say that. Similarly, I went on. I was honored to be basically the guest speaker in the Cruise News Clubhouse, which is the first. Like I love Clubhouse because I love asking people questions and diving into it. And this is the first time that I had people asking me questions, and it was like, oh, But what was a little nerve-wracking is that there were, customers, people who sail with us who are on, and they're listening to an employee speak. That had me nervous. That's when you're watching really closely what you say. Luckily it's not recorded, but to be able to speak to customers, like that is amazing. And I think, it's also the opposite too. Like if you had, like the industry that you're looking at, or the person that you're looking at working for, you can have a conversation with them very easily, and it's kind of your opportunity to shine. And because you're talking about industry news. So in other words, I think Clubhouse is gonna stay. I just think it's gonna dwindle down to, staying within your own industry and that sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
industry-wise, I think we'll be here for a while. In terms of like roast rooms and like, random stuff, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So final thing on Clubhouse, and we'll move over to our last topic for today. But I totally agree with what Collin was saying. One of the things for me in particular was I'm part of a very like my company is very visible, whereas people were like a tech startup in an industry that we're disrupting. So people who are a part of the traditional industry often they see, they might look me up on LinkedIn or something. They see that I'm a part of this company. And that's when they start asking questions and they start trying to dig into a little bit. Cause we're private, we're not public. So none of our, like our numbers aren't, available for everyone and they just want to be a part of it. So and some of the questions are innocent. But when you're a part of a big room and you're a part of a big panel, people start asking stuff, that they know that they probably couldn't get elsewhere. And that's when it's just like, come on, like I'm just here to, talk about maritime stuff because I'm a nerd, not because I want to, spill the beans about my company, so.
Yeah.
But awesome. All right. So now final topic, and this is an exciting one. I'll let Collin kind of break it down because this is really exciting for me. And not gonna lie, I was a little bit against it at first because I thought we had a good thing. We started it well, but Collin, take it away. Tell them what I'm talking about.
All right. So, as many of you guys know, we started this podcast. This is our 11th episode. We kind of had to get the ball rolling pretty quickly. We had this idea, we're sitting on it, and then one day something happened. What was it again, Connor? It was the containers overboard, right?
Oh yeah.
So what vessel was that?
The Apis or the Aquila?
Yeah, so that kind of sparked us making our first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of just got the ball rolling, started off on Instagram, had our logo, had someone just design it real quick off Fiverr. And I think we did pretty well so far.
We paid $25 for this logo.
Yeah.
Full transparency.
Yeah. So right now we're in the middle of kind of rebranding. We're getting set up. We have new mics. People are buying them. Mark and Brendan, I think they're the ones left to buy them. But Connor, myself, and Matt McKean, we both have our cameras, our mics. We're just trying to boost our production value now. And we're trying to fine tune everything, especially have more of a presence more frequently on our social media in general, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And so we're trying to be some sort of outlet for those young professionals trying to get into the industry, where they can look at our page and see what's happening, see what kind of opportunities are out there, and really be the one-stop shop for them or for anyone interested in getting in the industry. So I think that's something that we're putting our focus towards next. And also trying to come up with a better template for episodes, maybe think of a intro, layout, the topics we're going to discuss, because we've had a lot of great feedback from everyone commenting and sending us private messages. And we're just taking that all in and we're trying to see how we could improve.
Yeah, exactly. And so like Collin said, this was super impromptu. I sent out a tweet that absolutely blew up. If you listen to the first episode, it was just like a random tweet about an incident that happened. And we were just talking about the Suez and what was the other incident that happened. I guess it's that one, which is interesting because we were talking about that's why we started this podcast, or not why we started it, but why we like jumped into it so quickly, because we wanted to capture some of that buzz that I was getting on Twitter to kind of bring it over and get some views. But now the Suez Canal, and then now we're announcing like a full rebrand of what we're going to be doing. same cast, same schedule, but we're working on a new logo. We have people working on it. It's sick. Hopefully we can, make some gear for people who are interested in supporting the podcast. Not that money is going to go into our pockets, but it's going to go right back to the podcast. And particularly something that I'm super interested in, and not something that, we have not a lot of experience in, but we also want to, start looking and providing roles on our website. Like we talked about this, it's kind of just like a pipe dream, something that we want to do. But it's like, yeah, why can't you come to our podcast, our podcast website and just like find some internships that we found on LinkedIn, and we're just going to post them on our website, just so that if people are interested, they can apply, because it's something that we wish we had, and we keep going back to that. So yeah, I think it'll be a great resource for anyone looking to join our profession, or young professionals in general.
Yeah, I think we've had some pretty good engagement so far and really good feedback, really good criticism, constructive criticism.
Yeah.
So we're going to take all that and kind of, think about it and see how we can improve continuously. Just make each episode better than the last.
Agreed. I'm excited I'm real, like, even if no one buys these shirts, and listen, you don't have to buy the shirts. I'm just saying, the logo is sick, and I'm excited for everyone to see it. It'll be all over our Instagram as soon as we finalize it. Collin has been like instrumental in going and meeting with the artist to get, and interesting enough, it's actually a girlfriend of a past guest on the show. So, making connections and doing it that way through the podcast. So it was only right. But logo is sick. And so hopefully, everyone else is excited as I am. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to episode 11 of the Open Waters podcast. It's been a pleasure. Please just take a second to head on over to our social media pages, our YouTube and our Instagram at Open Waters Pod, and send us a follow, comment, like, subscribe. It really does mean a lot to us. So thank you, and have a good rest of your day.